The Hunt for Red October was a Nintendo game released in 1990 for the Nintendo Entertainment System. It was developed by Beam Software and published by Hi-Tech Expressions. So already this game has a lot going against it, as Hi-Tech Expressions released some of the most generic, boring, soulless titles on the NES, including a series of games for babies, and along with Beam Software, who you may remember from such classics as these. But to be fair, there were a few games made by Beam that had some merit, so I guess we'll see if this is one of them. So at first glance, The Hunt for Red October fits into what I call the why the fuck was this game even made category. I mean, sure, it's based off a solid movie that's often considered one of the best movie adaptations from a Tom Clancy book, but that doesn't really justify its existence to me as a game. I guess in the late 80s and 90s, publishers had that great idea to seek out licenses like this to bring attention and notoriety to their titles and keep that money flowing, but not all hit movies should automatically be turned into games, right? I mean, by this logic, I'm surprised there wasn't games based off Schindler's List or Silence of the Lambs. Why make these games? Remember Ernest P. Worrell, and the 10 or so movies starring him, not to mention a TV show? Why didn't he get a game or 4? I mean, he was kid friendly, his shit made me laugh way back when. Seems a little more marketable to me than fucking Hunt for Red October. As a kid, when a lot of these games came out, I was watching a lot of movies, some of which I was probably way too young to be watching at the time, but regardless, for a lot of us kids in the 80s and 90s, these flicks and things with lots of action and big explosions had the potential to send our young, energetic, pixie stick eating, quick mix drinking asses over the edge into a hyper running around the room up the wall overload. And that's who we were. But you know, Hunt for Red October as a kid would have bored me to death. I mean, there's not much action, they don't say motherfucker, and generally much of the plot and political implications would have went right over my head.
Would you launch an ICBM horizontally?
Sure. I helped my daddy build a bomb shelter in our basement.
How about a towed sonar array?
So it's really not a title I could see any kids begging their parents to have or saving up their lunch money to get. So the game actually starts off promising enough with a really good opening. I'm not sure the Paramount title is really necessary, but whatever. After a quick synopsis of the plot, you see the title screen, which I'd say is actually very good for the time, with a cool drowning, submerging effect, and has one of the main music themes from the movie playing in a classic NES style. But as soon as you press start, you dive right in, no cutscenes or instructions, just bam, you're suddenly thrown into the deep end. So you're a sub and the gameplay is a lot like your typical shmup. You've got missiles that you can fire up and rockets that you can fire straight ahead. Unlike a lot of side-scrolling shooters from the era, the sub can feel sluggish and handles a bit more like a tank, and I guess that makes sense as you're a sub in water and not a ship in space. But what doesn't make sense, especially to first-time players though, is the layout of the display. There's all the shit at the bottom that takes up a third of the screen. Some of it's intuitive like the radar and the missiles, but why are there letters next to it? What does the power relate to? ECM? And what's that thing that looks like a puzzle piece together submarine thing mean? So before getting into it, let's talk about this heads-up display. Now I can overlook the problems with this HUD, but it's not ideal. It's like having two screens, and you need to pay attention to both, which can be a pain. I think I get what they were going for and maybe wanting to have the submarine controls separate from the gameplay, but at the end of the day, it just takes away from the gameplay. Ideally, you'd have all or at least some of the shit on the screen, maybe in the corners or something, so it's always a quick glance away or easily kept in your peripheral vision. So if by happenstance you happen to have the manual and you read it, then maybe one would understand a bit more of what's going on, but even the manual leaves out important things. Like, for example, in regards to power, the manual says,
"The Red October requires an enormous amount of fuel. You need to acquire power pickups whenever they can be found. When your power meter runs low, your course may be finished."
Okay, so I interpret this as, in other words, if you run out of power, you may be fucked and you need to get the power pickups to refill it. Well, okay, fine, but these pickups are extremely rare, and when you run out of power, the only thing that happens is your radar dies. Well, that's not the end of the world, but what they might have wanted to mention is to fill up your power, all you have to do is surface. Yeah, if you go up and let your sub emerge from the water, your power gets refilled. I guess this fucker has solar panels or something, but damn it, I played this game for years and never knew this. Not to mention, when they say the Red October needs massive amounts of fuel, why do they call it power? Shouldn't it say fuel? I know they go hand in hand, but pick one, you bitches. The next thing it seems people overlook is the EMC, which stands for Emergency Countermeasures. To use this, you press both the A buttons and B buttons together. Doing this will cause any missiles coming towards you to be destroyed. Yeah, look at all this shit coming my way. We'll just press the two action buttons together and bam, they're all gone. Good thing to know about. This doesn't work on everything like the firepower coming from these turrets here, but any of the very common dick-shaped torpedoes coming your way, this will always work on. Next up is the Caterpillar drive. This supposedly makes the Red October invisible, and it was a very big deal in the movie.
A jet engine for the water. Only it's got no moving parts, so it's very, very quiet.
Like how quiet?
Whales humping.
In the game, it makes torpedoes coming your way go off course, but it's even better in later levels where all these planes and shit constantly pass by overhead, bombarding you with missiles unless you either destroy them or you have your caterpillar drive enabled, causing them to, I guess, not know you're there so they won't drop shit when they fly by. But it seems sometimes you have to have this drive going before they even appear on screen, and in general, this thing doesn't always work 100% of the time.
60% of the time, it works every time.
One last kind of cryptic thing on the HUD is time. The game is not on a timer, like if it runs out of time, you don't get a time over, start the level over, or anything like that. The time is basically incentive if you want to run through the level fast, as you can get a time bonus at the end of the stage. This also lets you know that, yeah, you can play through the game in two styles of play. You can blow shit up and have fun, or you can play more evasively and just avoid a lot of the shit. The time starts over whenever you lose a life anyway, so if you die after a checkpoint, you may get the time bonus anyway. Forget this time counter, it's really just a useless thing on this massive HUD. Speaking of extra lives, you start off with 5, game over and you start over, no continues. This game's hard, NES hard. One saving grace is you can get extra lives by catching this guy who falls from this special plane up by the surface. He will sometimes be shown as a heart on your radar, but sometimes you miss this if you're too low in the water, and this is another one of those things that people may not know about. I mean, I didn't for years, and the few times I got him way back when, I had no idea what the fuck he did. I mean, my eyes are up at the top of the screen looking at this guy, so why would I notice the lives counter change? A good game would have a sound effect indicating you're receiving him, but this game's too good for that, I guess. So the only sound effect you hear is the same one you hear if you missed the guy, which is
nothing! You lose!
Speaking of sound, let's talk about the music.
I heard something in the background, real faint. And then, after all those subs took off, I caught it again and managed to get it on tape. I washed it through the computer a few times and I was able to isolate this sound.
It's like Beethoven on the computer. So the music, if you can actually call it music, is a pretty ambient riff of only 8 low bass notes. It's in the key of D fuck minor, and on its own I actually kinda like it. It's a short line, but it does a good job, I think, of conveying tension and shit. The problem though is that it's the only music you're hearing 6 of this game's 7 levels. So you're gonna really learn to hate it and be sick of it very quickly. So while I do like it, I hate it. It wears out its fucking welcome almost instantaneously. Why wasn't this like boss music or low on health music or something? This movie won a fucking Grammy for sound design. Why they couldn't use music from the soundtrack and turn it into an NES rendition is beyond fucking lazy. It's also the very first thing many people bitch about when playing this game. Well, guess what? At least there's a solution, a saving grace. You can turn it off. Now technically it's a code, but it's so simple, it's genius. Pause the game, hit select, music's gone, thank fucking God. Now for the rest of the review, if I want, I can use some music from the soundtrack that should have been turned into NES music for the game in the first place, saving us from going into insanity, cause yes, this shit gets torturous. Again, I'm gonna forgive the designers a bit though, at least there's a solution to this, and maybe they knew how annoying it was and put it in there for a safe measure, because you do want to kill yourself after hearing it. It's got that effect on you, much like other Beam games like Back to the Future. You know that fucking Back to the Future music? I guess this is a Beam trademark, as them, not to mention high-tech expressions in general, might take the cake in the ear-bleeding take this screwdriver and push it in your fucking ears bad NES music monopoly. The problem is that people aren't aware of this simple solution, but there it is. Hit start, hit select, music's gone, buy the fucking Red October music soundtrack and turn that shit on instead. Or fucking whatever you prefer to listen to. There's also other codes for this game, and interesting, most of them aren't really even cheats. They're more like ways to improve the game, but I'll bring that up later if there's time. Almost forgot to mention the letters next to the missiles and rockets. There's 3 power levels. The rockets, for example, the default one shoots rockets no further than you can spit. The next level, they fully travel across the screen, and the third level is the homing version, which can be hit or miss, but it's still the best option most of the time, as you don't have to carefully aim. So the first stage, with your knowledge of how the controls and mechanics work, even if this level has given you trouble in the past, really shouldn't be a problem to get through. You'll quickly get over the lure that you're supposed to be playing as the most powerful, scary, most advanced super stealth hell underwater sub ever devised, because it sure doesn't play that way. I mean, the Russians have all the shit at their disposal, you really feel pretty outnumbered. There's other shit against you, like these chains with I don't know what at the end of them. If you run through the chain part, you take some damage. There's little mini subs and tanks above that bombard you with grenades, I guess? And these turrets everywhere, not to mention these nonsensical floodgate canal opening things, and these things that crush you. If you want, you can pull a Jaws just right over the top of these canal gates. Some of the enemies are quirky, like these turrets. They're a pain. Shooting them head on isn't advisable, as they will wreck you pretty damn quick. So gamer common sense would be shooting them from below, right? Well, sometimes they don't die. Look, I just wasted a shit ton of perfectly good missiles. Now dig this. If you shoot them off center, like just behind them, then 2 hits and they're toast. I have no comment. So whether you take the kill everything approach or not is up to you. It's nice to avoid the BS like the turret situation, but shooting subs and stuff will often drop power-ups. And later this is extremely important as the chance of getting an armor refill is a godsend. But if you're not starved for health or power-ups, then feel free not to care. Power-ups do show up on the radar, but if you don't need them, sometimes it's good not to bother. It's not worth getting damaged. But if you want to upgrade your missiles, go for it. Just be quick about it as they disappear pretty damn quick. At the end of the stage, you just gotta fire away at the wall till you make a hole you can go through. Now, in genius game programming, if you're cruising along the surface prior to this whole kind of boss situation, these guys on the bottom might not even show up, leaving no enemy resistance below.
Where are you guys? You were supposed to meet me here. Weren't you guys supposed to meet me here to fight? Hello? Where you guys at? Where you at?
However, if you're in the depths like the game I imagine intended, you have all these things to compete with. So if this is a glitch, I'm not even sure, but it's definitely odd. So you go through the hole in the wall, and then out of nowhere the level's done and you get this cool cutscene with good music, and I guess there's a conversation going on between, I guess, the publisher and the developer of the game, who seem to be having a drunk conversation about the making of the game we're currently playing.
Well, why make games about this for the NES?
Well, it's gonna have submarines in it.
Submarines are exciting and kids really like them.
We should definitely try to make a game about that with submarines. But we should make sure we get our money back by investing in a good company to publish the game. The company I work for, High Tech Expressions, is trying to break out of the baby games market, and I think this would make for a good project to do that.
Well, there's a movie with submarines in it. Maybe we should try to get the license for it. Even though the license cost $100,000 to get, it will have a cool cover and be based off a hit movie. Therefore, people will review it in 2014. Yay!
So level 2, the Arctic Zone, changes things up a bit. It's kind of a tight quarters type of level, and you have to carefully maneuver through a lot of smaller passageways. Sometimes it feels like surgery, and shooting some of these enemies at an angle is a pain, especially without getting some sort of damage, usually from hitting the walls. So the homing missiles, while not always having enough room to do what they're supposed to do, can help out a lot, as aiming is a pain. I mean, look at this shit.
Yep, I'm gonna get ya. I'm gonna get ya. Oh, yep. I'm gonna shoot you down. I'm gonna get ya.
So there's constant chunks of Arctic falling throughout the stage. You can shoot them with your vertical shot and they will break into 2 smaller pieces, or you can just run away or dodge them. This level also introduces a pretty cool mechanic where you can blast at the ice walls to make more room for yourself. However, it only lets you break through barely enough to make a difference. It would have been nice if they let you keep going. This isn't the last time we'll see this feature, but in later levels there's spots where this is utilized a little bit better. You're also introduced to this guy, who's some sort of attack sub that comes out of nowhere and shoots you in the back. He can be dangerous and frustrating. However, after playing the stage a few times, you have a better idea of where he's going to come from, or at least recognize certain spots where it seems likely he'll pop up. You can do a few things to deal with him. For me, I find it's best to engage the caterpillar drive to keep him from appearing in the first place, or you can quickly turn it on after he shows up to send his missiles off course. You can also get a jump on him by immediately getting below him and shooting a vertical missile up towards him, or sometimes force him out and then backtrack and shoot him in the back, or a combination of any of those tactics. This level also has alternating paths where you can choose to go up or down, and there's a few armor repairs in this level which are mandatory, as getting through this stuff without damage is like playing one of these things without ever sinking a ball. It's really not likely. There's a few places to surface to charge your power, and the plane that drops your extra lives is on this level as well. So the boss of the stage, I don't know what to say. Back in the day I could never beat him. Sometimes he dies, sometimes he doesn't. Often just like the genius programming of the first levels and area, sometimes you get to him and there will be no resistance around him to protect him. Consider yourself lucky if this is the case, as you can sort of freely blast away at him. Sometimes there's no indication that you're actually doing any damage, so I usually try going into this crevice here to blast away, often using my ECM to take out missiles coming my way or what's left of my caterpillar drive. And again, sometimes you get to him, and as I imagine was intended, there will be tons of shit to compete with. Or even in the latter case where all these extra guys don't show up, often you may die, and now all the extra guys will most likely be sure to spawn on your next life. Not to mention, after death, you will lose all your stronger missiles. There's a couple of power-ups, but sometimes it's not enough. But I don't know, something is just not right here. It's hard to explain, but something about this seems broken. It may even be a good time to use the level skip code, but that's a code you can only use once per game, and I can usually get through this if I plan for this fight by conserving my missiles and shit throughout the level, and then just hope for the best when I get here. Again, this position is usually your best bet, then give it all you got. And then out of nowhere, the game goes to the post-level stat screen before going to another cutscene. Well, on the other hand, why can't we just make an original game based off submarines and sell it on the popular game system of today? And it will still be popular, you know, bitch.
Well, it's very easy to make a submarine game and call it a side-scroller shooter. Have you ever heard of Scroon? Huh? Scroon? or Silent Surface? Those are based off submarines, and they are like the only games for the NES based off submarines. Are you sure you'd rather, Scroon?
So level 3, the open sea, is the first of 2 of what I'll call shallow water stages. There's a ton of planes that pretty much never stop coming, as well as attack boats, battleships on top of your standard mini subs. It's not too bad, but there's a lot of dodging to do, as you'll probably run out of juice for your caterpillar drive at some point. So you have to do something to avoid a crazy amount of torpedoes coming from these airplanes. ECM is your best friend for this. You can go deeper to avoid some of the onslaught, or sometimes you have to stop and let them fall in front of you before moving on. You can't touch the coral reef below without damage, but this hollow looking sort of reef doesn't need to be avoided and you can go through it, so use that to your advantage. There's a couple of checkpoints, so if you die, just keep treading along, and there's a couple of extra lives. In fact, on this playthrough I came across 3 of them in this level. I avoided one as I wasn't going to risk going to the surface as it's pretty dangerous up there, but even after getting one of the extra lives and then dying, I was actually able to get the same one back again. So you can take your time on this if you want to play more conservatively. So the boss is a huge ship. I just try to skim it, firing front to back and dodging the missile dropped by the helicopter best I can. If you don't have homing rockets, the only thing you can use is your upward missile, so it helps to conserve some main weapons through the level for this boss, but it's not impossible if you don't. There's a mini sub that respawns that you can often get a power up from, and then basically just shoot the ship in the same spot until you see damage and then move to another spot and rinse and repeat. Ship will blow up, and then there's a jump cut to the status screen, and then another cutscene. No, I never heard of any game called Scroon. And yeah, I remember Silent Surface. That was a shitty sub simulator game that I don't think I'd really want to play. What about Scroon? Scroon good? Yeah, Scroon was actually a really good game. It was a game where you were a submarine and you did submarine things and you were underwater. It was better than Jaws, which was another underwater type game. However, it didn't do very well. Yeah, I can see why. Ain't nobody ever heard of Scroon. I think I see what you are saying. We definitely need some brand recognition. After all, it is the 90s, after all. Yeah, man, it is the 90s. Level 4, Deep Sea Trench. Graphically a bit different than the other stages, but it's more of the same. There's a lot of spiked areas that can be broken like the walls in the ice caverns, and lots of situations with cannons and stuff to either blow up or sneak past. Occasionally be on the lookout for the sneaky attack sub who can be faked out or avoided without too much trouble. I believe there's only 2 times he pops up in this stage, and there's also only 2 places to really catch your breath and fill up on your power, but it's plenty. The boss is a mixed bag, some sort of underwater base I guess, who has these little hatches that open up and send homing missiles after you, and then there's a consistent group of mini subs as well. I've had times where I blast him over and over relentlessly and he doesn't die, although he will succumb to this method eventually. More times than not I'll die trying. Even after losing a life and being greeted with a nice batch of weapon power-ups, pretty much the same result, but to defeat him, a sure way that I found that generally works is to just go to one of the hatches on the right and then blow away at it till it shows damage, and then go to the one next to it and suddenly the whole thing blows up. Captain Skyhawk, this is not. Seems a little too easy, but wait, what the fuck? Even after I'm killed, once he's defeated, they decide to let you pass anyway, so okay, that's fine, I'll take it. Yeah, definitely don't want to end up in a bargain bin next to Silent Surface and Scroon, so I think we better buy this license. Once we slap our name all over it, we'll be sure to stand out and have a hit here. Well, as you already know, my team at Beam can make great licensed games. We recently did Back to the Futures and The Punisher for LGN and Days of Thunder for Mindscape, and we're working on Bad Street Brawler. Oh, I can't wait for Bad Street Brawler. That's one of the games that's gonna make the Power Glove work, right? Yeah! So I think it will be a good match. Well, I'm sold. Sounds like a plan. Okay, it's a go then. I'll run it by my superiors and you run it by yours. We'll work up a plan and we should be able to do this in, I don't know, a few weeks. Yay! Level 5, the Crystal Zone. This pretty much throws in the kitchen sink, or could be seen as a combination of the challenges from level 2 and 4. With multiple paths, crystal things that fall, and lots of cannons and tons of these rocket launchers that like to turn to face your direction. They shoot at a predictable angle and are easy to sneak by if you don't want to take them out. There's also these crystal walls everywhere that you often have to blow up to get by, but it's only a short amount of time until they grow back. Due to tight quarters, it's hard to take out the sneaky attack subs, so your best bet is to use the caterpillar drive mainly for their appearances. And then there's some tight areas that you just need to take your time on to pass damage free. If you're frustrated or impatient, this can become tedious, resulting in a case of die, 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 die. Walk away for a minute if this is the case. It's really not that bad, just take your time. What the fuck? There's also no places to really surface to fill your power meter, so you'll have to finally actually rely a bit more on the pickups for that. Now this boss, at least for me, was probably the most confusing boss yet. There's a few preliminary enemies before you fully reach them that you may want to take out, but whatever.
Whatever. That's so a cliche crap, saying whatever. I can't believe you. Yeah, right. Whatever.
There's this dome force field thing that protects this guy, but when it disappears, you're able to take some shots off. You want to take these cannons out first, and homing missiles seem mandatory, so hopefully you didn't frivolously use them before this encounter. Regardless, you don't have a way to shoot down, so this guy on the bottom you can't do much about. And then there's your reoccurring mini-sub that pesters you. But once these enemies are clear, you can actually go within the force field. Just don't touch it or it will fucking kill you. I believe this is what you're supposed to do, is it takes too long waiting for the thing to turn on and off just to get a couple of hits in, and I've never beat him this way. Not to mention there's really no other way to shoot it. You got this big crystal tower in front of it and the fucking way, so I imagine they're trying to steer you into it to blast this mofo from the inside. Sometimes easier said than done. Also, I see this suspicious window or whatever it is, and I usually target that area, blasting while trying not to be killed off by these attack subs. Sometimes one will actually shoot from this window. And call me superstitious, but it seems like constantly shooting doesn't work. It's like it wants you to shoot slower or something. I could be totally full of shit, but I blasted the hell out of him and failed. But then shooting him at this slower pace, I took him down with like half the amount of shots. So I'm confused, but whatever works, I guess. I think it's a good sign when you're shooting it in one spot, you see an explosion somewhere else. But it's another boss where I really can't put my finger on the exact trick. It's like, God forbid they gave these bosses a life bar or something. You know, just so you know that you're doing damage. Am I even hurting you? Regardless, with this strategy, you should be able to get your way through it. So I talked to the president, turns out he does blow and attend swinger parties with a guy at Paramount, so we were able to get the license, no problem.
Cool, good news. We've been busy at work conceptualizing things for the game and we got it going. Did you talk to the president about the budget for us?
I did. He's kind of an asshole. Unfortunately, the majority of the budget went into the license, so things are going to be kind of tight on this.
Okay. Well, we might have to avoid playtesting like usual, but that's okay. We know what we are doing here at Beam. I'll tell the guys and I'll have a playable demo for the game at the end of the week. So you can have your superior call me to see what he thinks before we finalize the thing. Roger 29er. Okay, well, see you at the book club later, right? Blah, 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 blah. I'll be there.
Okay, thanks, Jerry.
Later, Bammy.
So level 6, honestly, it's pretty much the exact same stage as level 3. I mean, same enemies and same basic setting, except there's cactuses instead of coral reef. And now there's a bunch of islands that look like a bunch of donuts with mold or broccoli growing out of them. But I guess they're trees. And yeah, same level end boss. Really creative. But like the last shallow water stage, the level's still pretty fucking intense. I mean, I've never had so many dick-shaped torpedoes after me this far. And let's quit beating around the bush. The fact is, they look like fucking dicks. I mean, it feels like I'm about to be sexually assaulted. There's more of these cocks here than on a 1,000-man gangbang. They got balls on them. They couldn't have put a couple wings on there instead, but no, they're balls. Fucking balls. Privates. I haven't seen so many Johnsons shooting off since the last Superman movie. Dicks. Again, it's the same boss. Maybe he takes more hits or the helicopter drops missiles more frequently, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same. I mean, I can't really tell the difference. Sometimes a plane will show up, but he gets bored and finds somewhere else to go and do some shit else.
He just took that guy's wallet.
Is he coming back? He's coming back, right? Is he coming back? No. And sometimes he won't even show up at all. And if you don't have enough upward torpedoes, you can be screwed. It's really good programming game. So you beat him, and then there's another fucking jump cut to the post-level screen. But wait, sabotage? Sabotage? Sabotage, sabotage, sabotage. Listen all y'all, it's a sabotage. I hear ya. Okay, so hold the fucking phone. I don't really know what to say here besides the obvious, which I'll get to in a second. I gotta say, movie continuity-wise, this is all fucking wrong. First of all, you're obviously playing as Sean Connery's character, Ramius, but in the movie, this is Alec Baldwin's moment to shine. So unless that's Alec Baldwin and he's wearing a white motorcycle or space helmet for whatever reason, which I'll assume isn't the case. Oh wait, obviously it's not. Well, that confirms it. So you're playing as the wrong character. Did they see the movie? Why this decision was made, I'll never know. Fuck you. I don't give a shit about the book or movie. No, I never saw that boring ass shit. I don't fucking read shit like that. I only read romance novels. Listen, I want to play as the old man. Yeah, the old man on the cover. Well, make it fucking so. I don't give a fuck. I'm funding this operation. Do what I say or you can say goodbye to the fucking license. Listen, this is my game. I know how to sell a game. We just released Barbie. Shit selling like hotcakes. Yeah, bitch. I know I don't know shit about programming. Well, that's fine. And after you finish this game, you can go back to making fucking games for LGN. I don't give a shit. It's the last fucking level, so just finish it up and make it quick. Should take you guys a day at most. You're supposed to be fucking professionals. They aren't gonna notice that shit, you prick. They're stupid ass kids. Fuck the source material, you prick. Or I'll get Imagineering on the phone. They'll make it happen. Yeah, well, at least they're fucking reliable. They can make a game quick without going over budget. This was supposed to be a 12-week project, but you guys are over there circle jerking, trying to add depth and shit. It's Hunt for Red October. Shit's gonna sell itself. Yeah, I'm sure I want to play as the old man. Just use the sprite from the canceled Abe Lincoln game, okay? Alright, call me back. So yeah, they fucked that up. Not to mention, look at it. It's a side-scrolling game with a gun. Well, can't wait to see what they do with this. Look at Sean Connery bumping his head on the ceiling. Look at the way he falls. He's a mental case.
There's an awful lot you can tell about a person by their shoes. Where they go, where they been.
This text isn't simply text, it's hard-coded on the background. You walk past the text. So the game's suddenly no longer a shmup, but a side-scrolling platform action game where you have to disarm all the bombs. And when I say all the bombs, I mean there's 5 full screens with multiple levels at 6 bombs per screen. That means there's like 30 of these bombs. And they're on a timer, so you have a limited amount of time to disarm them. The enemies have about as much detail as the bullies from Back to the Future on NES. The shooting is not good. You can shoot 6 rounds per clip, but then you have to reload by waiting a lot. So defuse a bomb while you wait for your gun to reload, as there's no way to manually reload this shit. Thankfully you can shoot in 8 directions, but the controls are not good. So yeah, everything is pretty much gray. This is not foreground. You can jump on it. You can't simply jump onto or jump off ladders though, so you have to think logically and do careful planning in your path. Or wait, I guess mid-jump you can jump on the ladders, but don't rely on it, as again, these controls are one of those you really have to play it to believe it sort of control schemes. It's kind of a mess. I have the music turned off because of the code I entered earlier, but let me put it in there for you. It's nothing fancy, but at least it's not more of this. But without the music, the game's really exposed at how boring and generically bad this really is. I mean, even for the time, 1991, which isn't really even that early in the NES life, this looks and plays really bad. So you have to go after the blinking bomb. That's the one that's gonna detonate. But if there's a bomb nearby, maybe disarm that for a bit, as it will remember the amount of disarming you've done when you come back to it. But some of them you can fully take care of, and this is a mandatory strategy, or else this will take forever. This is because after the bomb's disarmed, the bomb that's closest, or even right next to the one you just disarmed, what do you think the chances of that one being the next bomb that's gonna go off are? The answer is slim to none. Most likely the next bomb will be all the way at the top. And then guess where the next one will be? That's right, all the way at the bottom. So disable other bombs, even just a little bit if they're close to the one that's about to blow, but you only have so much time on the clock, so don't push it. As the last quarter on the timer is move your ass, you better be close to the next one time. Thankfully, once you're at a bomb and in disarm mode, the timer stops, which is nice. At least it's not some Bill and Ted figure out the phone number, Freedom Force figure out the word, ultimate stuntman actually manually disaim the bomb shit. Seriously, I really appreciate this, as all you have to do is just stand there and wait. So it could be worse. You can't fall from more than this high or you do this and take damage. I love how it has to think about how much damage that just took, like derp-a-derp. I mean, you can get up and the game's still trying to tally it up. And shit, every room has 6 bombs, but it takes a few seconds for even this bomb counter thing that tells you how many bombs are left in a room. Even though every room starts off with the same amount, even that takes a few seconds to count it up for you. Why? That's ridiculous.
Stupid!
You're so stupid!
One last thing is the HUD is worse than before. I like that they're still keeping score, like I'm gonna write this shit down, take a Polaroid and send it to Nintendo Power Magazine, really earn some bragging rights on the fucking playground. Gotta dig how the bombs on the HUD look like they're proper stereotypical bomb of the 90s, but the ones on the level are stereotypical bombs from like the 50s. But anyways, I've gotten to this stage a few times in my day, and yes, I've even game overed here too, like start the game all over, game over. It's not a good feeling, so you gotta be careful. So the best way to show you how to do this is to do a bit in real time so you can see how fun it all is. So know that you can jump on things that look like background and shoot all these mofos so you can focus on disarming the bombs. So for a quick example, here's how it is. The first room, shoot these dudes, jump up and disarm the bomb that's not blinking. Like I said, this is the strategy. This first room is the easiest as bombs aren't scattered all about yet. See, I got to this bomb that's a priority with plenty of time. Then you jump down and fall on your face. I don't know if you can jump off these ladders, so you gotta fall. I know you can jump on them, so let's try. Oops a daisy. Nope, you fall flat on your face and lie down there for a minute while it decides how much life you lost from the fall. All the while you're getting shot by the enemies as well. In general, you're gonna get hit by these guys. It's impossible not to, so it's really about simply getting through the rooms with some life left. A saving grace though is after every room your life is replenished. It's a nice touch. Seriously, it's another I guess this could have been worse moment. I'm just Mr. fucking Optimism when it comes to this game. So the second room starts off like the first, jump up and skip the first blinking bomb and get the one closest and then get the one about to blow. Take out enemies in the meantime. I love how your bullets don't fly very far. It's fucking great. Then get to the bottom. I skipped the priority bomb as you can barely just make the jump here, but get used to that as taking a step back and doing running jumps is quickly becoming the name of the game. Well, that room's clear, so I'll get my life back here. The third room's bombs start getting really spread out, and by the fifth room, it's just fucked. All over. You just gotta laugh at some of this stuff. Overall, this level's just goofy as hell, too. I mean, you could put Benny Hill theme music over this, and it would fit it perfectly. Then like always, the game does a hard out-of-nowhere jump cut to the final cutscene, where they say the line that's repeated in this game, which I guess was also in the movies and books, about how none of this ever happened. Well, I just fucking played it. In fact, I played this game a lot, and I can most certainly tell you that this did happen. That it did happen. This fucking game happened, and and then you get a screen telling you brought the Red October safely to the US. Welcome to the USA. A country where they make shitty games like this. And then you wait through the whole national anthem, and then it says the end. And then you see the 15 people who made this shit happen, but for safety reasons I guess they didn't want to mention what they did, for fear that they may go on some future Psycho's murder list. So I guess they wanted them to be confused about who to go after first, so they didn't want us to know who did what. But I tend to think Tanya Smith was to blame. Women. And that's the hunt for Red October for the Nintendo Entertainment System. So in conclusion, it may seem the Hunt for Red October is another shit game by another shit publisher, but in its defense I actually don't hate the game. In fact, I could probably pull an LJN Defender on it and defend it. Something I don't know if the Defender himself could actually do for this game.
I did manage to get to the second level, but I got a game over.
Plus it's not his brand. But yeah, a lot of people are probably in the same boat, which is part of why I think this video walkthrough may be helpful, but regardless, yes, the fact is I kinda like it. Probably a lot more than most. Still, it's obviously got its flaws. Mainly it feels like it was rushed or underdeveloped, and like many license-based games, it didn't get the time it deserved to become anything more than a game with a name based off a movie. Kind of a shame, as I actually believe this game could have been a great title. It has some cool ideas, and a shmup based off an underwater subsetting is kind of a breath of fresh air, ironically, compared to the plethora of shmups based off sky sharks and spaceship shooters. It's always welcome in my book, and the mechanics like the caterpillar drive, if executed better, could have been really cool. It's just too bad the thing doesn't last long enough, and it feels more like an executable Starman than anything else, and again, it doesn't always work. The mechanic of ECM is great. Some shmups will have power-ups or pickups to kill all enemies on screen, but having it at your disposal constantly to take out the barrage of projectiles is something that really works in this game from a strategy standpoint, and something I don't know if I've really come across in other games in similar genres. It's something that may not even work well in other games, but as this game's not really a bullet hell and more like a missile hell, it works. The graphics are a mixed bag. There's absolutely no slowdown or any glitchy graphic shit, but there's no detail in any of the backgrounds. It's just solid black and blue colors. I like that they put in this color shift as you change depths, going from light blue to a darker blue shades as you increase your depths, but again, there's no other details, which seems lazy, and I'm not sure what the fuck happened here. I still think this HUD is terrible, and in no way, shape, or form does it bring or add any realism to the game. But other than that last level, which looks like utter shit, I don't really think the game looks too bad. The missiles look the same as the enemies, and in certain encounters, especially with the homing versions, you got these things flying all over the place, and you can't really differentiate yours from the enemies. It would have been nice to maybe be able to manually switch between the normal shot missiles and the homing versions, as there's moments where one could have actually worked a lot better than the others, and it could have brought a more effective conservation and ammo management strategy to the game, not to mention brought up the fun factor a bit.
The music could use some improvement though. Don't get me wrong, it isn't devoid of good tunes, and I rather enjoyed the cutscene theme.
In the sound department, there's nothing to say. It's terrible. I mean, the sound effects are passable, nothing great. I've heard worse, but the music is unforgivably bad. Thank God Beam-like in Back to the Future seems to have a thing of being able to turn the music off, which again brings me to the codes for this game. I don't think these codes are actually codes, they are evidence. Evidence of indecisive indecision. Like maybe they've never had the chance to really feel this game out, and they just had to make game mechanic decisions on the fly. For example, I guess they feel like most shmups are auto-scrollers, so maybe we should do it too. But you know, it could arguably feel kinda weird in a sub-setting, I guess, like at level 2 where the shit takes careful maneuvering, the screen can kinda ride up on your ass and push you along. However, you can turn auto-scrolling off by pausing the game and inputting up, up, down, down, left, left, right, right. Now you can take it at your own pace, and again, it kinda makes the game better. Like, what the fuck? A lot of the codes are like this. It's like, hey Poppy, what's your favorite code for the game?
So my favorite game of the code was the no inertia code. It does this, that, and the other thing, and you have no inertia. And I don't like having inertia.
I dig. I mean, who the fuck wants inertia? Stuck at a level once per game, you're able to skip a level. Want double the points to feel better about yourself? Hey, you wanna play in slow motion? Hey, full systems code, fill up all your shit. What the fuck? Why so many inputs? I've put in passwords for games that are shorter than this. Fucking game. So I won't rant on. Really, what can you expect from High-Tech Expressions? Before this game, they published so many educational baby games just to cash in on naive parents that they really couldn't shake their rep for that garbage. They tried with this game but failed, and I'm glad they did. I mean, you can't change your clothes after making so many of these cash grabs, and to me they are the lowest of the low. So much so that I hold LJN in much higher regard as a publisher. That being said, I think this is their best offering on the NES, next to maybe Barbie, and take that for what it's worth. Now I could be wrong, as I'm not too familiar with these games, as I don't really fit the recommended age recommendation for those, so I stay away, but I assume Mickey Mouse 1, 2, 3 and Sesame Street Count to 3 aren't any sort of hidden gems for the system. But you know, let me know if I'm wrong. The game is pretty challenging, which doesn't make it a bad game in itself, but when bosses are unpredictably glitchy, that's a problem. At the end of the day, I think Hunt for Red October is a very flawed game that leaves a bad first impression, but it isn't as bad as people say once you get to know it. But I played way worse movie tie-in cash grabs, and I think Beam had the right intentions with the game, but like usual, maybe due to time or budget constraints, or simply due to decisions made by some unprofessional, bungling, ham-fisted, clumsy, unqualified Bush League motherfuckers, the game suffered a bit. Strangely though, I'd still say give it a shot. Thanks for watching.
I went into the Hunt for Red October with low expectations.
Yeah, well, why wouldn't you, man? I mean, it's a
NES era film-based tie-in title.
Yeah, that's correct.
I normally spend a few hours when I give a game a full review treatment. This mini segment, I only spent a half an hour. Just enough for initial impressions.
Okay, I mean, I know you're a busy guy and shit. I hear about your hot tub parties and stuff, but like, my review is longer than a half hour, man. So, I don't know what that means, but, you know. I mean, do you really think is anything you could really add to the walkthrough or anything? I mean, do you have any additional strategies or anything?
The vessel can also be angled diagonally, which helps in hitting those pesky guns while remaining out of their line of sight.
Anything else maybe?
I like to find the good in even the worst games. I'll leave that to the Nest Cat. I would only recommend picking up this cart for hardcore NES or Tom Clancy fans.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, if you're a hardcore Tom Clancy fan, read a book. And, you know, if you're a hardcore NES enthusiast, I don't know, play something else.
I'll give it a pass, though, for the fact that it fills me with the warm fuzzies for a long past era.
all right, man. Yo, I gotta go. I gotta go finish this review, okay, man? But, yeah, sorry it didn't work out and stuff. But, dude, we'll hook up soon, man. Anyway, I'll tell my people I love you. And, you know, check out LJ and Defend This, Sing This, Destroyer 20XX on the YouTubes, the Facebooks, and the Twitters.
So I'll send it back over to you, oh benevolent one.
Alright, cool. Thanks, Matt. Oh, that Matt. He's a cool guy.
I like to find the good in even the worst games. I'll leave that to the NES Cat.
I am the NES Cat.